My dad shoved my 9-year-old daughter to the floor at Christmas dinner and called her fake. 20 people watched. Nobody moved. So I pulled out a folder from my bag and said 4 words that made my mom drop her wine glass and my dad go white as a sheet. You've been served. Turns out, while they were stealing my inheritance and treating me like I didn't belong, they forgot one thing. Paper beats cruelty. And I had the receipts. Let me back up. I'm Morgan. Single mom. I've spent my whole life perfecting 2 skills, pretending I'm fine and carrying way too many grocery bags in one trip because I refused to make a second walk. For 30-something years, I thought if I stayed small enough, quiet enough, apologetic enough, my family would eventually accept me. Spoiler alert, they never did. Christmas Eve at my parents' house was my annual reminder that some people don't want you to belong. They want you to know you don't. The dining room looked like Christmas threw up. Garland on everything. Candles everywhere. My sister Vanessa had forced us into matching sweaters. Hers looked cute. Mine looked like I lost a bet with an elf. My daughter Grace kept pulling at her sleeves. She was 9, and the sweater Vanessa bought was made for what she called a petite angel. Translation, not my kid. At the head of the table sat my dad, holding his fork like a king holds a scepter. His laugh was loud and way too pleased with itself. Next to him, in the special seat, sat Vanessa's daughter Violet. 5 years old, blonde curls, big eyes. Everyone called her Grandpa's girl like it was a title you could win. That seat. God, that seat. The one closest to Dad. The one that always got the best plate, the first refill, the warmest smile. The seat that somehow meant you were family more than the rest of us were. Grace watched all of it with the careful face of a kid who learned to read rooms before she learned to read books. It makes you proud and breaks your heart at the exact same time. Dad's mood was what you'd call festive if you're being generous. When I walked in, he said, "Well, look who made it," like I'd crashed a party I wasn't invited to. I smiled anyway. That's what you do when you've been trained since birth. Smile. Make it easy. Don't give him a reason. Then dinner started, and so did the comments. Blood's thicker than eggnog, Dad announced, raising his glass toward Vanessa like they were sharing some inside joke. Vanessa laughed too hard. Mom laughed too quietly. Aunt Brenda laughed like someone was paying her per chuckle. Grace didn't laugh. She kept her hands folded in her lap like she'd learned that laughter could be used against you. I saw it. I clocked it. I swallowed it down like I'd swallowed everything else my whole life. And then came the moment that changed everything. Grace stood up with her little paper place card. Vanessa had made them with glitter and everything. Grace walked toward the table with this small, hopeful smile. She wasn't trying to steal anyone's crown. She just wanted to sit down. She wanted to belong. She got close to the special seat. Not because she wanted it, but because Vanessa had put her card there. Which is almost funny in a dark way, right? Like the universe has a sixth sense of humor. Dad saw the card. Saw Grace's hand reaching for the chair. And something in his face snapped. That seat is for my real grandkid, he barked. Grace froze. The smile dropped off her face so fast it was like someone cut a string. Get out, Dad added. And then he shoved her. Not a gentle nudge. Not a move along, sweetie. A shove. A grown man's hand on a child's shoulder, pushing her back like she was a problem that needed solving. Grace stumbled. Her foot caught the rug. Her knee hit the hardwood with a sound that made my stomach flip inside out. Silence. Complete, total silence. Forks stopped midair. Someone's napkin fell. Aunt Brenda made this tiny O sound, like Grace had spilled a drink instead of being shoved to the floor by her own grandfather. Vanessa didn't move. She just stared, like this was a scene in a show she hadn't asked to watch but might still enjoy. Mom's face went blank. That practiced blank she'd perfected over decades. 20 people. Adults. Family. Witnesses. Not one person stood up. Not one person said, "What the hell is wrong with you?" Not one person reached for my daughter. Not even my mother. My ears started ringing. My vision tunneled. And then, in the middle of that ringing, a thought landed in my head with perfect, icy clarity. This ends now. I leaned down close to Grace and whispered, "I've got you." Because I needed her to hear at least one adult in that room say something true. Then I reached into my bag. I pulled out a folder and set it on the table right between the cranberry sauce and the lie they'd been feeding me my entire life. I looked at my dad. Then my mom. "You've been served." For a second, nobody moved. Not even my father. Then his hand went to the folder like everything in that house belonged to him, which it always had. He flipped it open. His eyes scanned the first page. My mother was still holding her wine glass, frozen halfway to her mouth. My father's face drained of color. Not angry pale. Not "how dare you" pale. Pale like recognition. Pale like fear. And my mother's wine glass slipped from her fingers and hit the table with a sharp, ugly sound before tipping over. Then I walked out with my daughter. Behind me, for the first time all night, the silence broke. Not with comfort. With panic. To understand why I had that folder in my bag, you need to know what my life looked like in their house. Growing up, Vanessa was sunshine. I was weather. Vanessa got praised. I got corrected. Vanessa got "you're such a star." I got "don't be so sensitive." Dad's favorite trick was saying cruel things like they were jokes. "Where'd you get that hair?" he'd say when I was a teenager. "Must have been the mailman." Everyone would laugh. The kind of laugh people make when they're terrified of being the next target. Mom would give me that look that meant "don't start." "Don't make this worse." "Don't ruin dinner." See, my dad suspected I wasn't his. He never said it outright. He just treated me like a question mark for 30 years. He never got a paternity test because that would require admitting he might be wrong. Much easier to punish me for the suspicion and call it righteousness. And my mother let him. That's the part people don't understand until they've lived it. A father can be cruel because he's cruel. A mother has to decide, over and over, to watch it happen. My grandfather, Dad's father, was different. He wasn't warm exactly. He was old school. Thought emotions were for people who didn't have work to do. But he'd pat my shoulder and say, "You're smart. Don't let anyone dull that." He'd slip me a card on my birthday with a crisp 20 inside. He'd tell Vanessa loudly to stop spending money like it was a competitive sport. When he died, everything shifted. Not with grief. With ownership. Dad became in charge of the estate. Papers, accounts, decisions. And I was told, very casually, that there wasn't anything set aside for me. There wasn't anything set aside, Mom said, eyes on the kitchen counter, voice flat, like she was reading from a script. I believed her. Or I tried to. Because the alternative was admitting that my parents could look at me and decide I wasn't worth honesty. Then 2 weeks before Christmas, I babysat Violet. Vanessa had texted, "Can you watch Violet for an hour? I have a work call." Sure. Vanessa works from home the same way I do yoga when I reach for the TV remote. I said yes because Violet's 5 and she likes me. Also because I'm still infected with that old family disease, maybe if I'm useful, they'll treat me better. Vanessa left. The house went quiet. Violet played with her dolls. I cleaned up wrapping paper because apparently my role in that family is helper, not person. Vanessa's laptop sat on the coffee table. Closed. Asleep. Not my business. But Violet saw it like a shiny forbidden toy. She flipped it open. A password box popped up. And Violet, with her tiny serious face, typed the password like it was her own name. I walked over. "Hey, sweet pea, that's not a toy." I reached to close it. And that's when the laptop woke up fully. A PDF popped onto the screen. Right at the top, in bold letters, was my grandfather's name. I stopped breathing. I sat down. Not because I was being nosy. Because my body understood something before my brain did. This matters. I read fast. Focused. The way you read when you're afraid of what you'll find but more afraid of what you already suspect. There were headings. Official ones. Trust. Beneficiaries. And then I saw it. My full legal name. Not Morgan, maybe. Not other child. My name. Printed clean and undeniable. I scrolled carefully. A page titled Distribution Summary was half visible. One line jumped out because it had a date I remembered in my bones. The month I'd asked for help with a deposit on a safer apartment after a break-in. The month Dad laughed and said, "You should have made better choices." The month Mom shrugged and said, "We can't." That same month, Vanessa suddenly announced she was so blessed and bought a new SUV. I stared at that line until the numbers blurred. Then I did the only smart thing I've learned to do in that family. I took a photo. Just one. Clear. Trust name. My name. The parts that mattered. I closed the laptop. Violet asked if she could watch cartoons. I smiled at her like my world hadn't just tilted sideways. Yes, honey. Pick one. When Vanessa came home and chirped, "Everything fine?" I said yes. Because I needed time. Because confronting people like my parents without a plan is like walking into a hurricane with an umbrella. 2 days later, I sat across from a lawyer named Michelle Carter. Her office smelled like coffee and competence. I slid my phone across the desk. Michelle studied the photo for maybe 5 seconds before her expression changed. Not shock. Recognition. The kind of look you give when you've seen this pattern before. "If your name is on it," she said, voice calm, "trustees don't get to decide you don't count." I swallowed. Even if they think whatever they think, Michelle cut in. Ink beats opinions. I didn't call my parents. I didn't ask Vanessa to explain. I didn't try to clear the air. I let Michelle do what she does. Quietly. Legally. Completely. When Michelle handed me that folder a few days later, I didn't open it in the parking lot like some movie character. I sat in my car and stared at it like it was a bomb. Because it was. Not the explosive kind. The life-changing kind. For days, that folder lived in my bag. I took it out. Put it back. Took it out. Put it back. I told myself after the holidays. Not at Christmas. Not in front of everyone. Don't be dramatic. Don't ruin things. I told myself I could get through one more dinner. I told myself I could keep the peace. And then my father put his hands on my child. And waiting stopped being a choice. Grace was quiet in the car. Not normal quiet. The scary kind where you can hear your kid's brain trying to build meaning around something that should never have happened. Her knee was starting to swell. She sniffed hard, trying not to cry, like crying would make her a problem. I hated them for that. For teaching her that. I kept my voice gentle. "Hey. Look at me. You didn't do anything wrong." She stared out the window. "He doesn't like me." My throat tightened. "That's about him, baby. Not you." Grace's voice got smaller. "Is it because I'm not real?" There it was. The poison, passed down like an heirloom. I pulled the car over. I needed my hands steady for this. "No," I said, and I made that word a wall. "You are real. You belong with me. Always." She nodded like she wanted to believe me. Like belief was something she had to earn. Now, what was in that folder? It wasn't a threat. It was legal service. A court petition to force a full accounting of my grandfather's trust. Every dollar in. Every dollar out. Every signature. Every transfer. It asked the court to freeze further distributions until the truth was on paper where nobody could forget it. It asked to remove my parents as trustees because what I'd found wasn't confusion. It was theft. It included exhibits. My name on the trust. Distribution lines that matched Vanessa's sudden windfalls. Trust administrator information so nobody could pretend it was fake. And that cover page. That's why my father went pale. Because he recognized it. Because he knew exactly what he'd been doing. Because he knew I wasn't guessing. I was done. My phone started ringing before I even got home. Vanessa first. Then Mom. Then Dad. Over and over. Vanessa's voicemail was half rage, half panic. What did you do? Are you insane? You're ruining everything. Mom's was a sobbing whisper. Morgan, please. Please don't do this. Think about. As if I hadn't been thinking about my child's knee hitting hardwood. Dad's voicemail was cold. No yelling. No theatrics. Just this, you're not taking anything from this family. I didn't call back. I got Grace settled on the couch with an ice pack and cocoa with extra marshmallows. Because sometimes parenting is knowing when to add sugar to pain. We watched a Christmas movie. Grace tucked against my side like she was afraid the world might shove her again if she moved. My phone kept buzzing. Family group chat exploding. Aunt Brenda, how could you do this on Christmas? A cousin I barely knew. I saw what happened. Are you okay? Vanessa posted pictures of Violet in the special seat with a caption like it was cute. Like it was normal. Then the smear campaign started. Vanessa posted on Facebook, some people will destroy a family for money. No names. Just enough for everyone to point. My aunt messaged, you've always been dramatic, Morgan. My uncle, call your father and apologize. Nobody wrote, is Grace okay? That told me everything. Then Dad sent one text meant to scare me into silence. The weapon he'd been saving my whole life. You want court? Fine. Tell the judge why you should get my father's inheritance if you're not even mine. My stomach flipped. Not because I believed him. Because I knew what he was trying to do. He wasn't defending money. He was defending his right to punish. I stared at that text until my hands stopped shaking. Then I looked at Grace asleep on the couch and whispered to her and to myself, he doesn't get to write our story anymore. 2 days after Christmas, Michelle forwarded me a PDF titled Response Plus Motion. I was standing in my kitchen in yesterday's sweatshirt, watching Grace eat cereal like nothing had happened. Because that's what kids do when they're trying to be brave. Michelle texted, open it. Call me when you're on page 2. Page 2 was where they went for my throat. They were asking the court to dismiss my petition and sanction me for bad faith and harassment. Sanction. Like I was a misbehaving dog. My stomach dropped so hard I had to lean on the counter. Michelle called before I could spiral. They're going to try to make this about whether you're real family, she said, voice calm. Don't take the bait. They're really doing this, I whispered. Desperate people throw sand, Michelle said. Your name is on the trust. Trustees don't get to rewrite it based on suspicion. I stared at Grace carefully lining up her spoon and bowl like she could make the morning behave if she made the objects behave. I don't know if I want the truth, I said quietly. Michelle had me come in that afternoon. She slid a printout toward me. Initial snapshot from the trust administrator. I read the top line. My ears went hot. Trust principal at grandfather's death, $480,000. Next line, intended split, 50% Morgan, 50% Vanessa. I sat back hard. My share. So $240,000. Michelle nodded. Then she tapped the bottom line. Current trust balance, $38,000. My brain refused to process it. That can't be right. It's right, Michelle said. Now we show the court how it happened. She slid another page across. Distributions, trustee approved. And there it was. Where my life went. Not poetically. In line items. Vanessa's down payment. Vehicle purchase. Medical expenses. Education costs. Categories that sounded wholesome. Like if you label theft family support, it becomes okay. They told me they couldn't help me, I said, hearing my own voice too calm, too controlled. Michelle didn't perform empathy. She handed me reality like a weapon. They took money earmarked for you and spent it like a family slush fund. I looked at my name on the trust paperwork. Clean black ink. Like it had always been real. My phone buzzed. Aunt Brenda, why are you doing this to your father? I actually laughed. One sharp sound. That week, Grace asked me while I was brushing her hair, do I have to say sorry? The question landed like a punch. Sorry for what? She stared at her reflection. For making Grandpa mad. I set the brush down. No, I said firmly. You don't apologize for someone else hurting you. Her shoulders eased like she'd been carrying that thought in her backpack. That night, I made a decision I should have made years ago. No visits. No calls. No surprise drop-bys. Boundaries so hard you could trip over them. They stole my money. They don't get my daughter too. The first hearing happened fast. Emergency preservation. My parents' attorney, Diane Hartman, walked in like she owned the building. Polished. Bright-eyed. Smiling with her teeth but not her soul. She argued real grandchildren. She argued intent. She argued family understanding. Michelle asked for two things. Preserve records. Freeze movement. The judge granted both and set a deadline for the full file. Every statement. Every transfer record. Every trustee approval. My father's jaw tightened. Vanessa's eyes flicked to him. Mom stared at the table. On the walk out, my father looked at me like he was trying to decide if I was his daughter or his enemy. Bold time to start considering the relationship, Dad. Between hearings, the real proof started arriving. Not all at once. Paperwork arrives the way consequences do. Steadily. Without mercy. A week later, Michelle sent me a message. Come in now. She slid one page onto the desk. Look at the approvals column. I scanned down. Signatures. Initials. Authorizations. Then my eyes landed on it. My mother's signature. Not once. Multiple times. My stomach dropped. I thought it was just my father. But she knew. She knew the whole time. I didn't cry. I felt steady. Cold steady. The next hearing felt like walking into a room where everyone already knows the secret and you're the last one pretending it isn't there. Ms. Hartman tried one last time to pivot to biology. Michelle didn't blink. My name is on the trust. Trustees have duties. Signatures prove intent. Family rumor is not a legal defense. The judge didn't give a speech. He gave a decision. I won. My share was $240,000. The court ordered my parents to pay it back. Plus interest. Plus my legal costs. Plus penalties. $368,000 total. My father looked stunned. Vanessa went stiff. Mom didn't move at all. I didn't feel victorious. I felt lighter. Winning in court doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like your body finally lets go of something it's been clenching for years. When I got home, Grace was doing homework, tongue sticking out in concentration. Like we were just a normal Tuesday family. Like a judge hadn't just put a price tag on my parents' betrayal. Then I went into my room and saw the box. The paternity kit. Ms. Hartman's little gotcha, mailed to me weeks ago like a dare wrapped in cardboard. Michelle had told me flat and firm, don't touch it. Not for court. Not for them. And I hadn't. I'd let paper beat rumor. But now the case was decided. And the question was still sitting there like a live wire. I grabbed the box. Not because I owed anyone proof. Because I was tired of carrying doubt like it was my birthright. Inside, everything was neatly arranged. My father's sample was already included. That almost made me laugh. Not funny laugh. The bitter kind. I didn't read the instructions. I didn't make it a moment. I swabbed, sealed, and shoved it back in the mail like I was returning something that never should have been sent. Then came the waiting. Every day I checked for updates. Every day I told myself it didn't matter. Every day it mattered anyway. The email came on a Tuesday. I opened it alone at my kitchen counter. Read it once, twice, 3 times. Biological match confirmed. I'm his daughter. My first feeling wasn't relief. It was fury. Clean, cold fury. Because it meant the suspicion was wrong and the cruelty was still deliberate. It meant they could have ended this years ago with 1 test and 1 ounce of decency. They didn't want clarity. They wanted a license to be cruel. I sent the results to both of them. No long message. Just, you built my whole life around a lie. Here's the truth. Then I blocked them. A week later, my doorbell rang. My mother stood there alone, hands clasped like she was about to ask for forgiveness the way you ask for a favor. Grace was at school. Thank God. I opened the door just enough to make it clear I was listening, not welcoming. Mom's eyes were swollen, tired, like she'd been crying at mirrors and losing. She didn't start with "I'm sorry." She started with strategy. "Your father's been different," she said. "He asked about Grace. He wants to see her. He wants to be a family now that we know. Now that we know. Like love is a subscription that activates when the lab confirms you qualify." Then she cracked. The truth came out messy and too late. "Before you were born, I slept with someone else. Just once. Your father found out. Or suspected. I don't even remember which came first. But from that moment, he decided you might not be his. And I let him treat you like a question mark because I was guilty. I thought I deserved it. Somehow you ended up paying for it instead." She continued. "Now we can fix it. We can." I waited until she finished. Then I said quietly, "No." Her face tightened. "It shouldn't have mattered," I told her. "You were my mother whether I was his or not. And you chose him anyway." She tried to speak. I didn't let her. "My father doesn't get Grace now because a test says real. You don't get to come back because the story is comfortable again." Then I closed the door. That night, Grace asked me, steady and small, "We're not going back, right?" I sat beside her, close enough that she didn't have to be brave alone. "No, we're not." This time it wasn't a promise. It was a boundary. For months later, the money hit my account. All of it. They sold the house. The house. The one they'd owned outright. The one my father called his legacy. Turns out legacy doesn't mean much when a judge orders restitution and there's nowhere else to pull from. The sale covered it. Every dollar taken. Every dollar the court added on top. When the wire cleared, I didn't cry. I didn't celebrate. I paid off what I needed to. Set up Grace's future. And closed the door on the rest. They're broke now. Not we need to budget broke. Downsized, borrowed, quiet broke. The kind where relatives stop calling and excuses stop working. We're no contact. Not the dramatic kind. The peaceful kind. Grace laughs more. She sleeps through the night. She doesn't ask about real anymore. She knows where she belongs. I don't flinch when my phone buzzes. I don't brace myself at holidays. Our life is smaller and somehow so much bigger. They lost their money. They lost their story. They lost control. And I got my life back. Thanks for listening. If this story hit home for you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about standing up, setting boundaries, and choosing yourself when no one else will. Sometimes the family you protect is the one you build yourself.